In this segment, we're going to discuss fire pits. You don't need me to sit here and tell you how popular fire pits are, especially what's going on. Everybody wants to expand their patio experience, and what better way to do that is with some heat. We want to have them expand the early spring, the late fall, maybe even into the winter. So we all know that fire pits are very important to what the homeowner is looking for when spending that time outside with their family. But what I wanted to tell you is some of the tips or tricks that we have or install methods that do come up as questions. Not everybody that's going to be watching this video is going to be an expert installer. This might be the first time you've ever seen or wanted to know how to install a fire pit. So that's what we want to address here today. So exactly, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a wood fire pit, what we can do, what we cannot do with some add-ons with it. And then we're going to go into setting up a gas or liquid propane fire pit. And we're going to talk about the differences, the difference in setup, what you need to do if you're going to a propane setup. So that's what we really want to accomplish today. So what I have here in front of me in my 3D cutout is pretty much a fire pit. We have all our components here. We have our fire pit, which is our sunset dimensional, and we have our ring that comes standard with this fire pit. But what you see on the side and in the middle is really what comes up as the biggest question. What do I set my paving stone fire pit on top of? If there's an old retrofit, someone wants to add a fire pit to their existing patio, or whether it's a brand new install, we always recommend the same way to do it, which is to not set it on top of a paver and to set this on a paver base. We're using our high performance paver base here. As you can see, it's our 3/4 gravel, and this is your best way to install your fire pit. Okay, reason being is if you do take a look at this gravel, this allows water to drain through it. Now that's great for your base, but also is going to be perfect for when you have water getting into your fire pit when it rains. Not everybody's going to cover it, but what you have here is you're going to have dirty ash, dirty wood, so that will take all that water and wash it down and will get it into your base. So that is perfect. How far do we go down into our base with our fire pit? And that's always a question. And as you see here, we have 4 layers of stones that you get here. Some people like it a little higher, some will like it a little lower. But if you see off to the side here, we have it pretty much right up, settled into the ground on and almost taking up that first course. That is pretty much a proper way to set up a fire pit for an install on top of this type of base. This allows your pavers to come up and be right pretty much at that 3rd level. That gives enough space for people to set chairs around. They want to put their feet up on top of the fire pit, and they don't have the kids reaching over in. One of the most important things that we tell contractors or homeowners about their fire pit, when they're raised up too much or down too low, unfortunately kids can reach over or tend to reach in more. So kind of the 3 levels high is a perfect setting just because you want to be safe with your fire pits. Okay, the ring. Our blocks are made to withstand a lot of heat, a lot of temperature, and a lot of Mother Nature's elements. This ring, though, is pretty paramount in help protecting all that heat that's going to be going around. Okay, because this is going to heat up and cool down and heat up and cool down, which this is concrete. It will get affected by that. So always insert some sort of barrier to help with that heat refractory coming off of it. So whether it's one of our rings that we supply or an aftermarket ring, if you're using a smokeless insert or something that's a cooking receptacle, always have that inserted just like you see here. And down below, that's perfectly fine if you do have some exposed stones on top of there. One thing that we do always come across is someone might want to do a custom top. And a custom top really is something like our full nose, which we can place right here, or maybe a natural stone coping also. These all make great added touches to your fire pit. But there is a big no-no that we have seen out there in the field, and what we notice is this is a 12-inch long block, and this is a 12-inch long piece of natural stone. But what we notice is we want to have an overhang in the front. We don't want to have this overhang in the back. So this might require some cutting, being that it is a few inches longer than the fire pit itself. But what is so important is we do not want this material, which is, you can tell, is unprotected with the heat. When we talk about natural stone being unprotected, this will heat up a lot more than our concrete. And we have seen examples of this cracking, breaking, and even in some instances, depending on how hot that stone can get, we've actually seen it pop or explode. And we don't want to have that out there in case anybody's out there. They don't want to get a hot piece of stone blowing up on them. So install for a coping is always going to be even with the block, just like that. So it will require some cutting onto that, but then again, it's custom, and that's what you contractors do best, doing custom work to make sure that homeowner is very happy. I know it's easier to do it this way, but believe me, you'll save yourself a lot of callbacks and time wasted or money spent fixing that. Last but not least, when we're doing a fire pit made with fire here, when it's late at night and you want to go to bed, we always recommend to do not pour water onto this to cool this down. Being that these stones could have fire on them for 2, 3, 4 hours, they'll get up to a very high temperature. That shock of the initial water hitting that to cool this down will start to deteriorate your fire pit. Again, it'll also start to deteriorate your coping if you do have that. So again, if you have a cover or a spark arrestor that we also sell, that can go over top, the dome spark arrestor, that'll allow you to go back inside, let the fire cool down naturally, and let your fire pit cool down like it's supposed to. So that should address a lot of the questions about a fire pit using wood. What we want to talk about next is setting up this same fire pit for using a gas or a liquid propane setup. Not all municipalities allow wood to be burned outside, so you might have to go with that gas option. So let's take a look at what is required to be doing a gas or liquid propane fire pit. So we're going to set our fire pit up to do a gas or liquid propane setup. This is the same exact sunset dimensional fire pit that we had before for our wood burning, but you do notice a couple different things. One, we've taken out the black protective ring, and we've also left a block out over on this side, and we've also made a hole over on this side. And we're going to get into those in a minute. But when we talk about ordering a gas or propane fire pit kit, you're going to order it from an outside vendor, and they're going to supply you with the tray, the burner, and some ancillary things that you're going to need to install on your own. Okay, so that's why we've showed you two different things here. For this part, for installing the gas fire pit, we're going to need an on-off switch. Okay, and what we need to do is we're going to drill a hole into one of our blocks. We're going to insert the keyway and the adapter for the gas turn on and shut off, and we're going to insert a keyway. All right, that's going to be in there. That's going to allow the homeowner to turn on and turn off your gas fire pit. Before I go any further though, you're going to start to see in that kit that you get some of these nice piping or tubes that you need to install. I can't stress enough that you need to follow your local municipality laws. And anytime gas or liquid propane is being installed, please have that done by one of your local plumbers or a plumbing expert. Don't tackle this on your own because you want to make sure that everybody stays safe. So with that said, we're going to jump over to this side over here where we left this block space open. Again, this is the same fire pit that we had before for the wood setup, but we ended up taking out an extra block. What that's going to be for is for a venting use. Gas is heavier than air, so we want to make sure that we are able to make sure that air flows properly. And again, we leave us one whole space open as we're doing the install, and they make these great, nice vents that are the same size as our block. They just get inserted right in, and you build up your fire pit. If there's already one installed, technically you can chisel one of those out, maybe hit it out with a hammer, or kind of just take apart some of your fire pit and restack and do that. So retrofits definitely are available and easy to do. So once we have our venting in place, we have our keyway in place, then we're able to start setting up the tray and the burner. And we're going to show you that right here in a second. All right, so our next step in installing a gas or liquid propane fire pit is what you see we have here. Manufacturers also have a nice lip that they make in through here, but most contractors I know from experience, they like to take some of what we have here is our 4x8 Holland stone bricks, and this is actually going to be our platform for our tray and burner setup. Very easy to do. What we've done here is I've just taken these, stacked them up. I've actually glued them just in case something happens. So they're securely glued, and these are installed right into the base. You also want to make sure, it's tough on this 3D model, but you also want to make sure that they're clear of the vent and they're also clear of the keyway, so they come in that way where these openings are. You're going to have 4 of these set up, and that's going to allow your tray and your burner setup to go right on top of this, and then that would also be able to support the lava rock or the glass decorations that you want to put on top of your burner kit. So we've arrived at our final step for installing a gas or liquid propane fire pit. This is what we have: is we have our tray and we have our burner unit here. When we're at this stage, it's definitely where you want to have your plumber on hand to make sure everything is plumbed correctly, sealed, and ready to go. This gets set right on top of the Holland stone supports that we made it. As you can see, we'd have a 4th one over here if this wasn't a 3D cutout, but now we are ready to go. What goes on top of here is whatever media that you want, whether it's a lava rock or whether it's the nice smooth glass effects that are on here. The nice thing about these trays and these burners by our manufacturers out there is obviously we have a round pit in front of us. If you wanted a long rectangle or a square, they make that for whatever size that you want. The ideas are limitless, what you want to do out there, whatever your homeowner wants. You don't have to be set in just a circle fire pit when it comes to gas and propane. These manufacturers, you tell them exactly what you want and they make a great product. So again, just to follow up, we touched on wood and we touched on the liquid propane. Very similar installs, just some different things as you go up and different precautions that you're going to have to do. Fire pits add great length to anybody who wanted to spend more time out in their backyard patio, whether it's in the fall, whether it's in the spring. Depending on your local codes, what you want to do, whether you want to burn wood or have propane, you'll have yourself a fire pit for many years to come to keep you and your family warm.